The rain fell harder that night, beating against the rusted tin roof of the small, run-down house like 1,000 unanswered questions. And inside, Daniel sat at the edge of the old couch, staring at the bills piled up on the chipped wooden table, wondering how much longer he could keep pretending everything was fine. His little daughter, Lily, barely 7 years old, was asleep in the corner room with a worn-out teddy bear pressed against her chest, her tiny breaths steady and calm, completely unaware of the storms her father battled every day. Daniel rubbed his tired eyes, his hands calloused from double shifts at the mechanic shop, and for a moment he thought about the life he wanted to give his daughter, the kind of life he once promised his late wife before she was taken from him in a car accident 3 years ago. He whispered into the emptiness, as if speaking to her ghost, "I'm trying. Sarah, I swear I'm trying." That's when a knock came at the door, sharp and hesitant, like someone too desperate to stay, but too afraid to enter. Daniel frowned. Nobody came by this late. He walked slowly to the door, cautious, his instincts sharpened by years of scraping by in a tough neighborhood. When he opened it, his breath caught. Standing there was a young woman, drenched from head to toe, her long dark hair plastered to her pale face, one hand clutching the frame of the doorway while the other rested protectively over her swollen belly. She looked no older than 22, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, I need somewhere to stay, just for tonight. I'll pay." Daniel's first instinct was to shut the door. He didn't have space, he didn't have resources, and strangers were a risk. But something in her eyes, an unspoken plea, a kind of brokenness he recognized, made him pause. Lily stirred in the other room, and Daniel thought of her, of the world she would grow up in. He sighed, stepping aside. "Come in." The girl staggered into the warmth of the small living room, dripping water onto the worn carpet, and Daniel quickly grabbed a towel. "Sit," he said firmly but not unkindly. "You'll catch your death out there." She sat gingerly, her hands never leaving her belly. Up close, Daniel noticed the expensive cut of her coat, now mud-stained and torn, and the faint shimmer of jewelry she tried to hide beneath her sleeve. She looked like someone who didn't belong here. "I'm Daniel," he offered after a long silence. She hesitated, then whispered, "Elena." He nodded, waiting for more, but she gave nothing. He didn't push. That night, Elena slept in the spare room Daniel usually rented out to travelers or students when he could find them. She paid in advance, pulling out a small wad of cash that looked too fresh, too crisp, and Daniel wondered about her story. But he didn't ask. Everyone had their secrets, and it wasn't his place. Still, as he lay awake, listening to the rain ease into a soft drizzle, he couldn't shake the thought that this girl was running from something far bigger than he could imagine. Days turned into weeks, and Elena stayed. She was quiet, polite, and fiercely private. But gradually she began to soften around Lily. The little girl adored her, following her around the house, asking questions about the baby in her stomach, and curling up beside her during story time. Elena would smile, a fragile kind of smile, and stroke Lily's hair as if she found healing in the child's innocence. One evening, as Daniel washed dishes, he overheard Elena say softly, "You're lucky to have a dad like him." Lily giggled. "He's the best, even if he burns pancakes." Daniel smiled faintly, pretending not to hear, but beneath the fragile calm, tension simmered. Money was tight, and Daniel was drowning under debts. The landlord had been threatening eviction, and the shop owner hinted at cutting hours. Meanwhile, Elena carried her own battles in silence. Some nights Daniel would hear her crying softly in her room, muffling the sound with pillows, and his chest ached because he recognized the cry of someone who carried too much alone. One night he knocked gently. "You okay in there?" Silence. Then, a weak, "I'm fine." He almost walked away, but instead he whispered, "Sometimes fine is just another word for falling apart. If you ever need to talk, I'm here." He didn't wait for an answer, but for the first time, Elena felt the weight of her walls crack. Her story began to spill out in fragments. She wasn't just some girl. She was the daughter of a powerful millionaire family, hidden behind high walls and higher expectations. Her parents had arranged her life like a chessboard, even deciding whom she would marry, a cold, controlling man she didn't love. When she found herself pregnant, the truth shattered her world. The father wanted nothing to do with her, and her family only cared about their reputation. "They called me a disgrace," she whispered one night, tears glistening. They wanted me gone, hidden, like I never existed. So she ran, leaving behind mansions and luxury cars, trading them for freedom and survival. Daniel listened quietly, his jaw tight with anger on her behalf. Life in that small house became an odd kind of family. They shared meals, laughter, and even fears. Daniel found himself drawn to Elena's resilience, the way she tried to build a future for her unborn child despite the pain she carried. Elena, in turn, found comfort in Daniel's steady presence, the way he put Lily first no matter how hard life was. Slowly, they leaned on each other, two broken souls finding pieces of healing in the cracks. But peace never lasts. One evening, as Daniel walked Elena back from the clinic, a black car pulled up on the corner. The tinted window rolled down just enough for a sharp-eyed man in a suit to glare at them. Elena froze, her grip tightening on Daniel's arm. "We need to go," she whispered, panic in her voice. That night, she confessed. Her family had been looking for her. "They'll take me back. They'll take my baby," she cried, trembling. Daniel placed his rough hand over hers. "Not if I can help it." The following weeks were a whirlwind of fear and strength. Daniel worked harder than ever, saving every penny, planning to move them somewhere safe. But the weight grew heavier. His landlord gave him a final warning, and he knew eviction was days away. Elena felt guilt gnaw at her, knowing she had brought danger to this home. Yet she couldn't leave. She had nowhere else. One night, Daniel snapped under the pressure. "You don't understand, Elena. I'm barely holding this roof over our heads, and now there's people after you. People who could destroy everything." His voice cracked, raw with frustration. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I never asked you to save me. I just wanted a chance to be free." She turned away, sobbing, and for the first time, Daniel felt the unbearable weight of choosing between survival and compassion. Then came the breaking point. One stormy night, Elena went into labor. The power flickered, the roads flooded, and Daniel was forced to deliver the baby right there in the small living room with trembling hands and sheer determination. Elena screamed, clutching his hand so hard he thought his bones might break, and Lily cried in the corner, terrified. Hours later, as dawn broke, the cries of a newborn filled the house, fragile yet fierce. Daniel held the tiny baby girl in his arms, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered, handing her to Elena, who wept openly, clutching her daughter to her chest. News of the birth spread quickly, and within days, Elena's family tracked her down. They arrived in sleek cars, demanding she return, offering wealth and security in exchange. Elena stood in the doorway, her baby in her arms, Daniel by her side, and for the first time she didn't tremble. "I'm not your puppet anymore," she told them, her voice firm. "This is my life, my child, my family." Daniel expected them to fight, but something in Elena's unwavering stance silenced even the most powerful men. They left, furious but defeated. In the weeks that followed, the small house became a place of healing. Daniel was still poor, still struggling, but somehow with Elena and her baby there, the walls didn't feel so heavy. Elena chose not to return to her old life even when her parents tried again. She chose love, freedom, and the imperfect family she had found. And Daniel, who once thought he had nothing left to give, discovered he had built something far greater than money could buy. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold, Daniel sat on the porch with Elena beside him, Lily playing with the baby in the yard. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. Elena shook her head, her eyes shining with peace. "No, because for the first time I'm not just existing, I'm living." She looked at him, her gaze steady. "And I owe that to you." Daniel smiled, his heart swelling with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He took a deep breath, looking at the children laughing in the fading light, and whispered almost to himself, "Maybe life doesn't give us what we want, but sometimes it gives us exactly what we need." And in that moment, in that fragile, beautiful slice of time, they weren't poor, or broken, or lost. They were simply a family forged not by blood or wealth, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to choose each other against all odds.